I don't know, but whatever it is, he clearly knows what he's doing.
Yes, sir, there she goes.
Hello and welcome to episode 264 of Section 138. I'm your host, Mark Colley, as always, joined by Bryson and Jacob. We've got the normal rotation back this week after a couple of weeks of weird scheduling. Bryson, Jacob, how are you guys?
Doing great, Mark. Glad to have you back, obviously, as your current role. And of course, a fun weekend at Yankee Stadium. The Jays, of course, playing the Yankees for the first time. Some comments from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that I think I've definitely, I guess, got people going the wrong way in New York. But for the most part, it was a fun series. The Jays get the series win. And it was definitely a good way to end their weekend after what happened last week in Houston.
Yeah, definitely a good end of the road trip. And I mean, now they're going to head home, play the White Sox and
Welcome home,
Mariners.
Charlie.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, what did I say? I said they need to at least go 500 on the road trip, and I think that's exactly what they did. So, can't really ask for much more. I guess maybe a couple extra wins, but you know what? I'll take it. You play good teams, and you had an overall good road trip.
Yeah, I've heard people characterizing this road trip as kind of rough for the Blue Jays. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, ideally you win both series and you go in 4-6 against the Yankees and Astros, but this is the Yankees and Astros. I know the Astros haven't had the hottest start to the season. I know the Yankees have their own problems, but when you go 500 against two of probably the top 5 teams in baseball, maybe top 7 or 8 if you're looking at it that way, you can't complain about that situation. So I wouldn't describe these two series as rough. I think this is ultimately what the Blue Jays needed to do against these good teams, and they did it. A big standout from this series in New York is the starting pitching. You have Alek Manoah, you have Yusei Kikuchi, you have Kevin Gausman, all throwing gems out of the starting rotation. I know we've expressed a lot of concerns to start the season with the starting rotation, and I know we've been asking this question pretty much every week, but are we finally settling into a little bit of, okay, we can count on Alek Manoah every time out. We can count on Kevin Gausman every time out. We can start counting on someone like Yusei Kikuchi or even Jose Barrios, who's gotten a lot better over the course of the season, and Chris Bassett, who started pitching well. Are we at a point where we can start putting faith in these guys and start expecting some little bit of reliability out of them as the season progresses?
I think it's fair at this point. I mean, we haven't seen. I think it was last episode I said we need to see Brios at least once more to get a full gauge on him. But I'm looking at Yusei Kikuchi. I'm not saying that I'm handing him the ball in Game 7 at this point, but I'm giving him every start, and I'm having confidence in him in every start. And Alek Manoah, the thing is we have to remember, the start of this season was his first rough patch, really, of his career. And this is the worst stretch of his career so far. So other than that, he's been very reliable. He could have been Rookie of the Year 2021. He just didn't play enough. 2022 was a Cy Young finalist. He's clearly a talented pitcher, and he dominated the Yankees. We'll get to it later. He probably could have pitched a little bit longer, but when you're in command, 7 strong innings, pitch count is extremely low. Strikeouts are up. Well, I mean, they're not crazy high, but you're striking out 5 batters, only the 1 walk, no earned runs. You are giving your team a chance to win against one of the premier teams. And I know they didn't end up winning, but regardless of that, Alek Manoah was not the reason why. And to me, even if you lose 2 out of 3, thankfully they didn't lose 2 out of 3, but if you're looking at reasons to be optimistic for, a future series or just the future of this team in general, starting pitching is starting to become one of them. And I mean, we're now going through the 5th or 6th rotation through or turn through the rotation, if I'm not mistaken. Everybody's starting to settle in, and it's the thing is if you have a good start, you're like Manoah where you have 7 innings, or you're like Kikuchi and Gausman where you're throwing 5, 6, 7 innings. That's less on the bullpen, so that's more of a rested bullpen, and that's more for say tomorrow or today or whatever it is. If you need to use your high leverage guys 2 days in a row, it's not like you're panicking for that 3rd game because you're like, oh well, what if we don't have him? No, you can rely on that starting pitcher. So at this point, I'm not going to say that, yes, the rotation is completely back to form, but 95% there. We've clearly seen that this is one of the better rotations, not just in the American League, but even baseball. We talked about how you have your top 3, Bassett, Manoah and Gosman, who are all three borderline. I mean, I'm not going to say all three are borderline aces, but they're easily a 1 or 2 starter on any rotation in this league. And then you just have your fourth and fifth starters who, in some cases, are wild cards, but at least in the early going, have been pitching like a third starter, or even a second starter in some instances. So I'm definitely happy with what we're seeing throughout the end of April and hopefully into May, and we'll just have to see if it continues. And I like we keep saying, like we said about the Astros series, these are good teams. It's not like you're just squeezing by the Kansas City Royals. No disrespect to them, but you are doing well against a very good team. And if you're looking at reasons to be optimistic, if you can dominate a good team, that's all you really need to know. That this team and specifically the starting rotation is looking like it's back in form.
I'll tell you what, it was a great weekend for the starting rotation to bounce back, because if they didn't, and if there were some hiccups along the way, I think we'd be a little bit more concerned, especially just because it's the first time against the Yankees. Like, I remember last year when they first played the Yankees, and it just felt like, I guess coming into the year, we didn't really, I guess, hype up the Yankees as much as we should have. And it just felt like really early on, there was a massive difference between these two teams in terms of, I guess, just levels they were on. I mean, the Yankees were off to that horrific or historic start, sorry. And then, of course, the Jays had some holes, and the Yankees pretty much were, it just felt like they were like unbeatable at a certain point last year. So I'm glad that we were able to get the first series out of the way with the Jays winning the series. Of course, this team feels a lot more competitive than last year in terms of matching up with the Yankees. I think, of course, the Yankees do have their own situations going on with injuries, as you mentioned, Mark, at the top. But I just think coming away with this on the weekend, or from the weekend, was crucial for that. And of course, in terms of asking about the starting rotation, I'll be even more confident than Jacob. I'll say it's back after what we saw this weekend. I think Yusei Kikuchi goes out there again. And I mean, first of all, I'm sure you guys saw the pictures of him at Central Park the day before his start. He loves going there for some reason. I think he says just because of how quiet it is. But the fact that he was able to go out there again, I mean, he goes 6 innings, allowing 1 run, another quality start, 3 strikeouts, and his stuff is just, it remains good. Like, this is something that has been consistent now throughout the pretty much the start of the year. And even then, those starts that Jacob and we discussed a lot over the last couple of weeks, is even those starts in Kansas City and Anaheim where things didn't exactly go his way, or especially the one in Anaheim, he still had good stuff going, I felt like. And there was just factors in the start that happened around him that pretty much affected his overall, I guess, numbers in terms of that. So that's why I was always confident with Kikuchi coming into this weekend. And the fact that he goes out there again, I mean, his slider was outstanding. I thought on Friday night, he puts up that box score. And then, of course, the biggest elephant in the room for me, or the biggest question mark, and I think it was for everybody, was Alek Manoah. I mean, we talked, or Jacob, you talked about it a little bit. The first time we have seen him struggle like this. And in terms of mechanically, location, everything like that, it just wasn't going his way. And the fact that they needed him to come out this weekend, and, maybe all he needed was just face the Yankees to get him going again. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, like, if you look at the way he pitched on Saturday compared to what we've seen throughout the other 4 starts this year, I mean, it's not even remotely close. It looks like a completely different pitcher. And then the pitcher that we saw this past Saturday was the one that we're used to seeing, the one that's going out there and locating pitches, being confident, a lower pitch count. Jacob, you talked about that, the efficiency. I think it was 7 scoreless innings again with 5 strikeouts. But for me, it wasn't even the strikeouts that I was looking for here, because I know the strikeouts are coming with Alek Manoah. It was the walking, because that's something that has been an issue this year in terms of falling behind the count, in terms of high pitch counts. I mean, barely getting to the 5th inning for a couple straight starts that he had going on earlier on in the season, most notably going back to the home opener against the Tigers, where, I mean, he's throwing 35 pitches an inning. He's falling behind counts. So that's why I think that was the biggest part for me, was that he was able to go out there and be efficient. And there was no walks even to his box score on Saturday, and his slider was also really good for him, I thought, as one of his secondary pitches that were getting a lot of swing and misses. So that was really important for me to see Manoah go out there against Garrett Cole, against the Yankees, to be able to do that. He loves pitching at Yankee Stadium, and maybe that's all he needed to get going again. So cautiously optimistic that he's going to be able to figure it out. Even before this start, I think we all had that understanding he was going to figure it out. And then, of course, with Kevin Gausman, I mean, there's not much else to say other than I'm not surprised in terms of his bounce back. I mean, it's weird to kind of, again, this is something we talked about the last episode. It's just weird what happened against the Astros, out of all teams, where just nobody was going after his splitter. Like, it was just bizarre. And then after that first inning, he settled in and got the bullpen, or he gave the bullpen some rest going up to around the 5th inning. He goes back out there yesterday on Sunday, and pretty much gets or picks up right where he left off at the beginning of April. I mean, 11 whiffs on a splitter alone, and then of course 11 strikeouts overall in 7 scoreless, of course, as well. And I was thinking to myself, I don't ever remember a pitcher on this team, or just in general, it's really rare to see where somebody goes out there early on in April and gets lit up for like 7 earned runs, like what happened with Kevin Gausman in Houston. And then he comes away with the start, and we're pretty much near the end of April now, and his ERA is still below 3. That shows how good he's been despite that start in Houston. He's been outstanding. He went out there again, and he made the Yankees look like fools with this splitter, and it was really cool seeing Anthony Rizzo cry to the umpire about a called third strike. That was something that I took in very, it was very enjoying to see that. And that's why I think with Kevin Gausman, he was locked in. This rotation was locked in. I think it's in a good spot after this road trip.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. It's hard to look at it any other way. I mean, you can look at that Houston series and complain about some of the starts that the Blue Jays got there, but in a Yankee series against an offense like the Yankees, to go out there and throw 3 phenomenal back-to-back-to-back outings is really great. And for the Alek Manoah start, there was more riding on it than just good pitching. Like, there was a lot of storylines outside of the pitching that was going on that day. We saw in the Friday game, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got hit by a pitch. Words exchanged between him and the reliever on the mound at that point, also him and Anthony Rizzo. The benches don't clear, but both the managers come out. The umpires have to get in between. It's a whole thing. That was Friday. Saturday, we expected fireworks because we knew Alek Manoah was going head-to-head with Garrett Cole on the mound, and we know the rivalry they have dating back to last year, and Alek Manoah chirping Garrett Cole about getting past the Audi sign next time if he's going to come onto the field, et cetera, et cetera. We didn't really see much in the way of fireworks. We saw Santiago Espinal get hit with a pitch in the hand, and thankfully the x-rays are negative, but he looked like he was in a lot of pain. He came out of the game, but that was basically all we saw, and from all intents and purposes, it seems like it was unintentional. I don't know if there's more coming down the road with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I know that was some of the big controversy from this series, with Vladdy coming out and saying and doubling down on his statements over the offseason that he would never play with the Yankees, not even dead. He said that it's a personal thing, it's a family thing, and then when he hit his second home run of the series on Sunday's game, Yankees fans booed him. And then in response to that, manager John Schneider said they don't boo nobodies. So just kind of a wonderful back and forth to start the season. And I mean, taking the fan out of it, watching these rivalries and watching these tensions between fan bases and teams makes it exhilarating, especially when it's something like the Yankees, who the Blue Jays have been up against for so long. And there is already this kind of shared history with them. It was awesome to see that rivalry bloom and become a little bit more intense. I know it's kind of been building over the offseason. Yankees fans seem to be obsessed with the Blue Jays for whatever reason and making fun of them and various things, both appropriate and inappropriate. But it's brilliant to see. It's wonderful to see this kind of rivalry bloom, and I'm happy that the Blue Jays got the last laugh in this series. We'll see what happens down the line.
Honestly, I love this. I mean, yeah, they're not going to play as much this season as in years past, but this is what makes it fun. And I think it was the Saturday game, Dan and Joe, they mentioned that this Blue Jays team is different. It's not like they're the kids who are coming up who are like, yeah, maybe we'll squeeze by with 90 plus wins, and the Yankees will just be a lock for the division lead. Like, these are two, dare I say, equal teams in terms of standings. Like, these are teams that are straight up going head to head. It's not like, oh, let's try and beat the Yankees. It's no, we can beat the Yankees. And I think it's fun. The only thing that I'm worried about is that we will, I mean, with baseball, the problem is you get a problem with a guy, you just throw at him. And then, I mean, you saw this, I think it was 2018, where it was Jay Happ versus someone where they're just constantly throwing at each other like every other inning. I don't want to see that. I mean, I doubt we will. I feel like if this was last year, we'd probably see something like that where the Blue Jays were, more flamboyant and maybe ego oriented. But this season, I think that they really are just a team that, like, let's just win. We don't really care. We're not here to showboat. I mean, yeah, they'll celebrate and things like that, but I think that this team is a lot quieter in terms of how they go about things. But I think this Yankee rivalry will definitely fire them up. And I guess one thing that I'll mention about that whole Anthony Rizzo situation, dude, shut up. Like, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was hit by a pitch. He can talk if he wants to. He can say, I don't like that. And that was the whole
Okay,
argument. Like,
I may have a controversial opinion here, but I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was probably in the wrong there.
I don't no,
Jacob, do you think that pitch to Vladdy was intentional or no?
I'm not saying it was intentional, but if the person receiving the hit wants to say something, I don't think that you can just immediately say, no, go take your base and be quiet. Because that's what the whole thing was. It was basically just Rizzo saying, dude, be quiet. So I don't know. Is thankfully, like I said, it didn't really lead to much other than just a little bit of an argument and then, no fireworks in the next inning or the next batter or whatever. But it definitely makes it a little more interesting, I think, if you're a fan of this team, or even if you're just an outsider looking at it. But we'll have to see, I guess, what transpires in the next couple series. I don't think they're playing for a while off the top of my head.
I think they play once in May and then
Yeah,
not until September.
middle of May, the Yankees come to Toronto. So I don't know. I like it. I think it's nice to have these type of rivalries. I mean, we always hear about like Yankees, Red Sox, and Yankees, Mets, and all these other types of rivalries just off the top of my head. And so it's nice to kind of have that type of rivalry, especially division wise, because you take 2 out of 3, you're quite literally making your chances in the standings a lot better. Like you are not only increasing your record, but decreasing somebody else's record. So it'll be a fun, I think, rest of the season, and maybe we'll see these two teams in the playoffs sometime. We'll have to see, but I'm enjoying it so far, and we'll have to see, I guess, what this May series happens to be. And I think one thing to look at, I know this is a long way away, but we'll have to see how that new bullpen plays into effect at Rogers Center. I guarantee you there's going to be somebody recreating that. I think it was in Boston, that video where someone just screams, "That's a ball, Garrett." Like, I love that video. It's just it's so stupid, but it's so funny. But we'll have to see how the fans react there. But definitely shaping up to be, I think, one of the Blue Jays' better rivals this season and beyond.
Don't
Just
forget.
to jump in
Yeah.
on Vladdy, the reason I say I think he may have been in the wrong is because he was hit by that pitch. I don't think it's intentional, and he was staring down the pitcher, and I think that's why Anthony Rizzo kind of got involved. So, like, I don't know if it was justified to stare down the pitcher in that situation. Like, I know there's all this stuff going on, but that's the reason why I say I don't know if it made sense.
Yeah, I think he may have been looking for it, but for me, I think I'm more with Jacob where I don't think it's Anthony Rizzo's part to do any like I didn't understand that part either. I thought he was also looking for it. I think they were both looking for it, honestly, and then nothing really. I mean, of course, we didn't see the benches didn't clear, nothing carried over to the next day. So, I mean, it's something that's going to definitely. I wouldn't say we're done seeing any sort of heads butting in this, of course, this rivalry, but of course it'll have to wait till I guess the end of May, like you guys were talking about. That's the next time they play. But yeah, like with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., it's interesting because I wonder, like, of course, we're never going to find out. Like, I wonder what that whole thing was with the Yankees. Like, I mean, is it maybe something with his dad or whatever back then during his playing career? I don't know. But whatever it is, he clearly knows what he's doing, and he's clearly well aware of the backlash that comes after it. So I'm fine with him going out there and saying whatever he wants to say about that. And the best part about it is he's backing it up. I mean, we've seen the memes of him doing like, this is my house and everything like that. But of course, I was seeing the same thing about Yankee Stadium to him. So the fact that he's able to produce at Yankee Stadium and own Yankee Stadium, I think that's really crucial. And of course, he hits very well, of course, off of Garrett Cole as well. So, I mean, he had a good weekend overall, but of course, the Friday and the Sunday game were highlighted with those home runs and the boos. And I think he's really embraced that villain role that he's kind of pretty much done to himself, and he knows what he's doing. He's fine with it. And the same thing goes with Alek Manoah. I mean, you talked about with Alek Manoah last year, what he said in the offseason on Serge Ibaka's cooking show about Garrett Cole being the biggest cheater in sports or whatever. They both know what they're doing. And I think, honestly, they're both in a very similar situation in terms of how they are, I guess, the perception from Yankees fans about how much they hate them. And I think the feeling is obviously very mutual that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. despises the Yankees, which he's admitted. And I'm sure Alek Manoah doesn't think too much differently on that part. So I'm glad that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was able to talk all of that and back it up. I think that was the biggest part for me. And of course, he did that throughout the series with his home runs. And I think that was really crucial, especially with Manoah going out there like we discussed. But for me, it's interesting because I'm not fully convinced that hitting him was not intentional. I'm not saying it was on purpose. I'm not fully convinced that it was not an accident. I don't know. A part of me doesn't have a good feeling that that was completely by accident. But again, it's something that perhaps is going to boil over throughout the season, of course, when they play each other a couple more times this season. So that's something to look out for. But I'm glad that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was able to just have a great weekend overall. And I'm glad that he's completely fine with saying whatever he's saying, and he's pretty much backing everything up because he owns Yankee Stadium. That's for sure.
That can't be denied. Another 2 home runs in a 3-game series can't be denied how much he owns the Yankees. And yeah, like the rational part of my brain is thinking that like maybe Vladdy's in the wrong, but the fan part of my brain is supporting him 100% because like you do look at the fact that he said these things and in the very next game he gets beamed with a fastball. It's like I don't know. The math does check out a little bit, but like I think he was antagonizing them a little bit, but as a fan, I love it. Bring it on. Um, yeah, it was fun to see the rivalry though. Especially with Alek Manoah. I gotta be honest, I was a little disappointed with the Manoah Cole game because I expected like bases to clear at some point. I really thought like 7th inning when Garrett Cole knows he's getting pulled, he was gonna plunk whoever was up to bat that inning, Vladdy or whoever. And I thought we might get some heroics and some dramatics, but ended up being pretty mainstream, and that's okay. But I'm sure we'll get fireworks down the line, and maybe they'll pull a Texas Rangers and last game of the season against each other. We'll see some fireworks fly because they're not worried about repercussions down the road. Or maybe if these two teams face off in the postseason, which is certainly a possibility at this point, we'll get to see some of that as well on the biggest stage imaginable. Kevin Gausman I know we talked about it a little bit, but it's the most strikeouts for a Blue Jay at Yankee Stadium since Roger Clemens did it, and those are the only 2 guys in Blue Jays history to have 11 or more strikeouts at Yankee Stadium. I don't know if that's qualified by having 0 walks at the same time, but regardless, a phenomenal start from Kevin Gausman goes down in the history books in Blue Jays history in terms of starts at Yankee Stadium. The other thing to mention, at least offensively for the Blue Jays, because we haven't talked a lot about that besides Vladdy, is Brandon Belt. He had a phenomenal game in the series opener, kind of carried the Blue Jays to their win, and it seems like he's finally coming around. I know it took him a while. We know he had the surgery in the offseason. We know he's one of those guys who's probably over the hill and not going to be the same offensive contributor that he was for much of his career, but 2 for 4 on Friday, a home run, a double, scored 4 of the Blue Jays, 6 runs. And if the Blue Jays can get that from Brandon Belt, great. He doesn't need to be that for the Blue Jays, but if they can get that at least occasionally, I'm over the moon with him. And I think he's more there for his clubhouse influence than anything else. I know like the lefty bat and everything, but I think he's more there for his clubhouse presence, his veteran presence, the fact that he's been there and done it before on multiple contenders, right? 2010, 2012, 2014 with the Giants. I think all those facts combine to make him a perfect fit for the Blue Jays, whether he contributes on the field or not. And whatever they get on the field is a bonus. And I think the fact that he won that game for the Blue Jays was great, phenomenal. And hopefully that little bit of a hot streak continues over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think that like what's important to note, and we've probably mentioned this throughout the last couple episodes, or just pretty much since the season has started. Brandon Belt's not here to be your starting first baseman or starting anywhere. He's just meant to be a bench bat, and he'll start the odd game. I mean, he's clearly starting quite a few games, but he'll get his chances. But he don't expect him to hit. I mean, right now his average is under 200 sluggings, just barely over 325 on base percentage. We would be considered a good batting average at 240 for him. Like stats are definitely not in his favor, but that's not really what he's brought in to do. Like he'll give you some offense from time to time. I think it was the home opener, one of those games against the Tigers. I think it was the home opener where he was driving in a couple runs, getting a few hits in that game against the Yankees. Obviously, he was definitely one of the biggest factors there. That's really what we're going to see. Sometimes he'll do well. Sometimes he'll drive in runs. He's not a liability defensively by any means. So just kind of understand that. I feel like a good comparison, and maybe you guys disagree with this, would be something like Curtis Granderson, where he's not really brought in to be a actual contributor offensively or just on the field in general. He's just kind of brought in. He'll get you his reps in. He's not going to be terrible. He's not going to be a huge liability, but he's really brought in there to fill a more of a personal role, and he'll do that well. So I think this is just kind of what we need to expect out of Brandon Belt. Like, don't expect him to turn into the next. I mean, I don't know. Don't expect him to take over Vladdy's role and have Vladdy take over the DH role primarily or anything like that. Like, we're not going to see that. And he's an older guy. He's just here to get his reps in. So it was definitely nice to have him win a game for the Blue Jays. Realistically, like if you want to put it that way, but other than that, like he is probably just going to be a pretty streaky player throughout the rest of this season. And I think we just kind of have to accept that. Unfortunately, the strikeouts are going to be up, but the odd time he will definitely drive in some runs.
Yeah, definitely a good weekend for Brandon Belt. I mean, if you really look at it, pretty much since the start of the home opener of that first home stand of the season, and then pretty much is what's translated since, he's actually hitting a lot better. I think he's hitting over 330 pretty much since that span, and he's really looked a little bit more comfortable. Of course, he's not all the way back yet, and who knows what that we're going to see in terms of all the way back. So that's why I think, like, I agree with what you're saying, Jacob. I look at it a little bit more saying like he's not just there to get his reps. And like I do think he's here to contribute as much as he can. Like it's not like he's there just to give him a roster spot and just to, plant him on the roster. I do think he's here to contribute. It's just I think the expectations level from people needed to lower pretty much from the start of the season. And I think that they need to accept that. Of course, you guys are right about him not being in the lineup every day. I think he's pretty much going to be a guy coming in and off the bench. Like you guys were saying, he's going to be in the lineup a few times this series, not all the time, of course, which we've already started to see pretty much since the start of the season. So if he can be just a little bit more consistent at the plate, and he's starting to show that since, again, that homestand started a couple weeks ago, I think that's pretty important for this lineup. I think that's good for Brandon Belt in terms of the expectations, in terms of what he's going to bring, because I do think he can bring some good still from what we've been seeing. I mean, again, we're not expecting him to hit 20 plus home runs or anything like that, but he can be a solid contributor to this team, and he doesn't need to be in the lineup every day for that to happen, because the Blue Jays have their own core to pretty much for that to happen already with them. So I think that he can be kind of a supporting factor for that. Of course, off the field is a big part of that. We all know how good of a player he is and how classy he is from everything we've heard about him. But contributing to the lineup here and there, I think, is really important for him. And of course, it was really good for him to go out there on Friday and do that against the Yankees. I mean, this was really the first game where all around, in terms of every single at bat you saw from him, he looked good. I mean, the 4 RBIs, he just missed out of hitting that second home run later in the game. Like, he was really close from pretty much going deep again. And then his first home run, which is to right center field, I mean, he crushed that, and he looked, it was really good contact from what we saw. And I'm glad that he was able to get one of those games in, because as much as he was starting to contribute slower and slower since that homestand, I think he was still due for a day where he pretty much went 3 for 4, over 3 RBIs. And that's exactly what we saw from him. So that's going to, it's good that he was able to do that, I think, before the end of April as well. And I think it's just picking your spots with Brandon Belt, pretty much deciding when and where is a good spot for him to be in the lineup. What's a good day for him to be in the lineup? Of course, we talked about days where Vladdy's DHing. He can go there to first base, while Alejandro Kirk doesn't have to be in there every single time as a DH. It's all those factors, I think, come back to play when Brandon Belt's contributing in a good way for that, because he's definitely been getting a lot of backlash to start the year. And of course, I mean, he hasn't been playing well. I think there's no question about that in terms of the strikeouts, but he is striking out less. He's making more contact. So that's why I'm still a little bit more optimistic that he's turning the curve in terms of his early season struggles. And I'm happy to see it. And I'm happy for him, because of course, as much as he has pretty much proven himself throughout his entire career, I think he also wants to end this thing off on a good note. And the fact that he was able to recover from knee surgery, it was a major knee surgery, and the fact that he's able to come around and he's showing some flashes of the player that he can still be for this team, I think that's very important to him as well.
Can I just clarify real quick? When I said get his reps in, that might have sounded a little harsh now that I think about it after listening to you.
It did.
What I meant is he's going to get his at-bats and he's going to get chances to hit, but don't expect him to hit, like you said, 20 plus home runs or anything like that. Like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, his expectations are totally fair for him, and I'm not happy with his performance totally yet, but if he can hit even just a little bit over 200, get you a couple home runs here or there, provide you defense, then that's totally fine. That's exactly what you expect out of him, and you can be completely happy with that.
One thing I found interesting about Brandon Belt from this series is that John Schneider pinch hit for Brandon Belt with Danny Jansen in the Saturday game. And first off, that decision just to me seems wild from the outset. Like, Danny Jansen has had a very cold start to the season. but then the result of that pinch hitting is even wilder to me. Like the fact that Danny Jansen came in the top of the ninth and hit a pinch hit 2-run home run to tie the game at Yankee Stadium, like that's a wild progression of events to me. And it shocked me that they went with Danny Jansen over Brandon Belt, and it shocked me that Danny Jansen hit that pinch hit home run. So, but yeah, another thing to talk about from that game was the fact that the Blue Jays or John Schneider decided to pull Alek Manoah after 7 innings. He left the game sitting at 85 pitches. He had gone 7 innings, 2 hits allowed, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. We've talked about his line. We talked about how effective he was. The Blue Jays put in Jimmy Garcia, and Garcia proceeds to give up 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. A lot of people are criticizing John Schneider for deciding to remove Alek Manoah, especially because it was against the 7, 8, 9 hitters in the New York Yankees lineup, and he was only sitting at 85 pitches. I'm curious if you guys take issue with that decision from John Schneider. If you agree with the decision, what factors you think led to John Schneider pulling out Alek Manoah in that game?
Here we go.
You act as if I'm about to make like the boldest take of.
No, it just flashes of this last year. It's not. I'm not like criticizing what you're gonna say. It's just, we've
been
had
a while
lots of
since
these.
we had a good bullpen banter.
Yeah,
like
it's just
Charlie Montoyo days.
we've done a
is what
lot
we're
of
getting
this.
back
That's
to.
all I'm saying. Yeah.
Mhm. So here's the thing. Whenever I say that,
Oh baby, here we
I'm
go.
about to say something controversial. Anyways, I don't have a problem with pulling Alek Manoah. I know his pitch count was low. I don't know if Jimmy Garcia is who I go to, but I don't necessarily have a huge issue with it. And just looking at it, 3 of Jimmy Garcia's last 4 appearances, 2 runs each. So 6 runs in his last 4 appearances, and that is over a span of 4 innings. So the ERA is inflated. I mean, it's at 7.20 right now, and he did have a stretch of like 6 or whatever it is appearances of giving up nothing, but it's not looking good. And I mean, out of that, I mean, you look at 2 home runs against Tampa Bay allowed, 1 in the game against the Yankees. I mean, he's getting his strikeouts. He's got 4 strikeouts in his last 5 appearances, but I mean, when it's only 1 inning, it's a little bit more impressive, but he's not pitching very well right now. And even you look at guys like Adam Simber, like the bullpen, the guys that they relied on last season, not necessarily doing as well right now. And I mean, I can't remember who posted it, but somebody on Twitter made like a meme about John Schneider's bullpen priority list, and it was like Jordan Romano at the top, everybody that's struggling. I feel like he put Nate Pearson, or whoever posted it, put Nate Pearson on the list, and then like the whole AAA bullpen, then Eric Swanson on the bottom. So it's like, if you're going to go to your bullpen, use the best guys. Like, I don't know why you're using Jimmy Garcia in this situation. Yes, he's been one of your better relievers. Yes, you kind of want him to earn your trust back, but Eric Swanson, somebody else. Like, I think that's who you got to put in that situation. Didn't end up working. I mean, they obviously lost the game, and even Jordan Romano kind of struggled. So it's not like he had the greatest appearance either. But I wouldn't necessarily pin that on taking Alek Manoah out. Like, at the end of the day, you can't rely on him to throw 9 innings of shutout baseball to win a game. So I think the offense, it was pretty cold. Like, I'm just trying to remember exactly. They had bases loaded against Cole, I think. I'm just trying to see how many they left on. Yeah, they left on 8 men on base in that Saturday game. It was not good. They had plenty of opportunities. Garrett Cole was not sharp either. I mean, he'll look sharp just based off of the box score, but he struggled to keep the Blue Jays off the bases, and he got lucky based off of a bad Blue Jays offensive day. So you can't necessarily, in my opinion, blame Manoah being pulled for that loss. Like, you need better offense, and your bullpen needs to do its job. And it's a tough ask to demand everybody to have shutout innings, but it was a combination of things. Like, this isn't John Schneider's fault for taking Alek Manoah out. A lot of other things needed to go differently, and I don't know, maybe I'll get hate for that. I feel like people sometimes disagree with takes like that, but I think that it is one of those things where it's not John Schneider losing a chess match. It's the Blue Jays not performing the way they're expected to.
I like that. Okay. Like, it's so easy to rip on something when it doesn't work. It really is. I mean, but if the fact of the matter is, if this thing works out on Saturday, we're not having this conversation, obviously, but I guess the fan part of me would have liked to see Alek Manoah go out there another inning. However, you take in all the factors in terms of it's been a slow start. It's kind of just the way baseball's managed. When that's something you put now where you can go the eighth and the ninth inning. So I don't disagree with the decision. I think it's definitely interesting in terms of the people you're bringing in though. Like I in terms of what you were saying, Jacob, I agree with you in terms of Jimmy Garcia. Like he usually is a reliable guy late in the game for this team. Unfortunately, it hasn't been the case this season for him. He's kind of been off to a rocky start. And then other than that, I mean, the only guy that I can really fully trust before Jordan Romano coming into the game is Eric Swanson. That's it. I mean, I look at Jimmy Garcia, like we talked about. Tim Meza, it's kind of turned into a flip a coin. I mean, you don't know what you're going to be getting, but of course, I think his last couple of appearances have been good. Zach Pop has built himself back up to a high leverage role, but of course, that first time he came out in a high leverage role, it didn't go too well for him in Houston. So, don't know how confident I feel in terms of being certain with it. Adam Simber, I do not trust late in games. I'll be, with all due respect, I think he's more of a middle inning guy or middle relief guy. Anthony Bass has been a disaster to start the year. And then Trevor Richards is also, I think I do think he's been pitching better than what we've been making it out to be. But of course, I'm not trusting him late in the game either. So that's where you look at it. You wonder if this bullpen is definitely missing a piece. Of course, that's something that will be addressed in the summer. Chad Green's on his way back, and hopefully he turns out to be the reliever he used to be. So with what John Schneider was working with, it's hard for me to completely criticize the move. I definitely would have liked to see Eric Swanson come in, though. I mean, like, you traded for this guy for a reason. I understand that they're waiting for the ninth inning in that situation if it's tied to bring him in. That's pretty much the approach they were using it as. But I mean, he's been your best reliever other than, again, Jordan Romano, and he's been the best reliever, including Jordan Romano this season. You got to bring him in my opinion, as well, late in a game like that. You got to find a way to get him involved. That's why you went out to trade for him. But it's hard to really go with that decision when all these guys you don't exactly trust completely. That's kind of why it's hard for me to completely criticize the move. But at the same time, there's also an argument if that's the case, why isn't Alek Manoah going out there for another inning? I'm not here to completely support that. But I definitely, the fan part of me would have liked to see him try and go out there again 100%. I just think they took in all the factors of, the amount of times for the order, the fact Manoah struggled, all that stuff. So it's definitely an interesting conversation. And I will say, no matter if you agree or disagree, Mark, whatever you're going to say, these conversations are always a blast.
Oh yeah. No, I don't know. I don't take big issue with the decision. Like maybe it wasn't the smartest thing to do in hindsight, but hindsight is 2020. If we're sitting here and Jimmy Garcia struck out the side, like we're happy that Alek Manoah got taken out and the Blue Jays potentially win that game, or maybe that game goes to the 10th, or whatever happens in that chain of events down in the eighth and ninth inning. But like hindsight is 2020, and if that move works out, we're not talking about it. So, but I understand the need to look. Alek Manoah has been struggling lately. Like we talk about momentum, we talk about building blocks. If you can end his start on the stretch that he had, the phenomenal outing he had, he can kind of wash his hands of it and move forward and build off that in his next start. Like I don't think taking him out at 85 pitches is a problem when he's been struggling. So I understand that side of it. Should they've gone to someone besides Garcia? Like maybe like I have more trust in Swanson right now. I have more trust in Romano right now, but maybe that's it. Like I don't know if there's anyone else in the bullpen I trust more. And I mean, I say I have trust in Romano, but Romano came out in the bottom of the ninth and blew it. So like I don't know. The Blue Jays bullpen is always going to be one of those things that we don't totally trust, but I think it's writ large this season, we can be happy with the way things have started, or happier with the ways things have started compared to previous seasons. So I don't know. I think this is a blip on the radar. Like John Schneider made a choice he needed to make. His back was against the wall either way. If he keeps Manoah in and Manoah gives up a hit in the first at bat and he gets pulled and that run comes around to score, like I don't know. I think we view Manoah's start a lot differently if it ends with an earned run in the eighth or two earned runs in the eighth. And I think getting him out of there with a clean inning, with a good start, a good final line in the bag is really important to build momentum. And I don't think Garcia is the wrong guy to go to in that situation. So I think people are overreacting when they criticize this move a lot, but whatever. It's the bullpen. That's what we do. Okay, the Blue Jays are welcoming the Chicago White Sox on a new homestand. It is Charlie Montoyo's homecoming to the Rogers Center. 3 games against the White Sox. What are our series predictions?
Just want to quickly see. So today looks like it's going to be Bassett versus Lynn, but I think I haven't mentioned this yet, but I don't think anybody is actually going to be watching the game because there's a big important game in Tampa Bay going on. I had to do it.
Bingo.
Why can't you do both? I don't understand why.
I mean, I like tech.
Split
Anyways,
screen.
Bassett versus Lynn today. Mike Clevenger, that's a name I haven't heard in a while, against Brios looking like tomorrow. And then Yusei Kikuchi, Blue Jays legend, against Michael Kopech. White Sox are not very good right now. I'm gonna say a sweep. I've had the good predictions so far. I mean, all I'm gonna say, I've had the best predictions in the
They're
last.
in last.
Yeah, but I'm like on the come up. You guys are on the downfall.
Well, I was perfect this weekend.
Oh, anyways,
He was. We all, for the record, we all said 2 out of 3, but Bryson got the game right. So Jacob, you and I got 3 points. Bryson got a perfect 4 on the weekend.
okay. Well,
Yeah, take that.
yeah, we'll take a sweep. Let's see if you do that. Anyways, yeah, I do think that they're gonna sweep.
I mean, yeah, the White Sox, like, yeah, you're wording kid like 7-15. Like, this was a team a couple years ago that was like a lock to be a playoff team, and ever since that season, it's kind of been downhill for them. Yeah, you know, I'm very tempted to take a sweep with you. I mean, first of all, Charlie Montoyo is back. I have to assume they're going to do some sort of video thing for him. I don't know for sure. Maybe not a whole tribute, but maybe show him and kind of give him a little bit of a wave. I mean, that'd be cool, I guess, but I don't know. He's back. Good for him. Welcome back, Charlie. But yeah, like you talked about what's going for the rotation. You got Bassett, Barrios, Kikuchi. I mean, they're all coming off really good starts. I really like where all their games are at. Bassett's figured it out. The other two have been on the rise in terms of confidence. The White Sox are in a good. Okay, I'm doing it. I'll take a sweep with you as well. I can't pinpoint a game that they're going to lose here. It's too hard for me to predict one of the games they're going to lose here.
So you're just foregoing the possibility of getting an extra point? Oh, I guess if you're saying they sweep, then
yeah, I guess that counts as the extra
Right.
4, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If they win all the games, you get the 4 points. I'm gonna go 2 out of 3. I'll be the contrarian. I think Charlie Montoyo brings some bad luck with him to the Blue Jays, and I think they lose the middle game because it's Clevenger pitching, and he seems to be the most solid of the 3 starters that the White Sox have going, and it's also Barrios, so maybe. I know I said last episode I'm 100% buying into what Barrios has got going right now, but maybe he fumbles a little bit. I don't know. I'll say 2 out of 3 just because both of you are saying 3 out of 3. I think Charlie Montoyo brings some bad luck. But just to update the standings on where our series predictions lie, because we finally caught up on the calculations after Bryson's 4-point weekend against the Yankees. Bryson's leading the way with 16 points. I'm at 15 points, and Jacob, you're at 14 points. So we're knotted up. Things could change this weekend, depending what happens. Anything else to add before we wrap it up?
I just like to add, I don't know if you guys saw, but credit to the home run jacket. It lives on in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you guys saw that,
Really?
but the Pirates have officially unveiled their own Barrio jacket. Yeah.
And
Did
the
you see?
Pirates are off to a crazy start. They're like what, 16-9 or 16
They're
and
turning
7 or
that
something?
corner. They are.
Even
Maybe
the
it's a home
Mariners
run
too.
jacket.
Well, I just want you see the Mariners with that
Yeah.
trident. It's pretty. I
Yeah,
won't.
we don't talk about them on here.
Yeah, well, it was 8-1. Anyways, I kind of wish that they. I wish the
Okay.
Blue Jays kept the jacket. That's a bold take. That we don't have enough time for that, but it was cool to see it.
Be careful what you say.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for. There's a lot of new home run celebrations around baseball. Like, I don't know if anyone saw the Reds have a new like hockey home run where they wear like a helmet and then they also
I
get a
thought that was the
hockey stick at
Tigers.
the end of the. Maybe that was the Tigers.
Yeah, the Tigers,
I
the
don't
Red
know.
Wings helmet.
All those central teams blend together. But yeah, I don't know. Some weird, like, I love dugout celebrations, but I feel like some of them are getting a little bit gimmicky. Like, I feel like this is gonna go down a rabbit hole. I feel like the home run jacket was great because it like symbolized something. Like, it symbolized the diversity of the team and where everyone's from. Like, you walk into the dugout with a trident, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel organic. It feels like it's forced a little
Aquaman.
bit. And even like, as much as I hate the Red Sox, like the shopping cart celebration. That was fun. Like, it was organic. It just kind of popped up, but you're like, I don't know. It feels a little gimmicky. That's my hot take.
Well, next thing the Tigers are gonna bring out like an actual tiger, like ride it.
Well, I mean, yeah, like Tigers and Red Wings. Not a good era for Detroit sports right now. I mean, their football team's turning around, but anyways, I think I saw one team also like had like a Darth Vader helmet going on with like team colors. Like I don't
Yeah.
it is it's ridiculous, but you know what? People are having fun. Just in terms of the home run jacket with this team, just we have to be careful what we say because there's a lot of opinion on that. It's a very divisive topic.
All I will say is it made the home runs
Anyways.
a little more fun to watch.
Winning a World Series would be even funner though.
Wearing the
Well,
jacket.
do you think
Well, anyways,
we get another home run celebration? Like, do you think, like, not home run jacket, but something new over the course of the season? Or is that like done? Is there like a ban on that in the Blue Jays dugout?
This is a Jacob question.
I, I would love to see something. The mood around the clubhouse, the way I'm reading it, and this goes back to spring training, is that they're kind of beyond just that whole era of the team. Like they're just here to win. Vladdy will do the whole like shh and the 1,000 arm movements when he hits a home run, but I highly doubt that you're gonna see something like that, which is kind of unfortunate because I would love to see it. But I mean, like Bryson said, winning a World Series would be fun, but I think also winning a World Series with those celebrations would be a little bit more fun too. But I don't know. We will see.
Yeah. I mean, Vladdy, I guess, wears it in spirit after he kind of does that to himself. So, I mean, maybe that's the closest we're going to get. For me, I don't see it, but I wouldn't like completely be surprised, but I can't see it happening.
Yeah. I think it might take a bit. Like, I think maybe if we get some like energy mid-July, like trade deadline, maybe we'll see some stuff pop up, but I think it'll take about until then. I don't think the current squad is doing anything by themselves unless they may go on this crazy winning streak, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. Okay, after that tangent is done, thank you for listening to this episode of Section 138. It's good to have the three of us back in normal rotation. Hopefully this continues for the next couple weeks. As always, you can support our podcast and do everything with our podcast by going to the link below this episode, the link in our bio on social media. It's a link tree/section 138 pod. You can find our buy us coffee page. You can find us on Discord. You can join our Discord where we have about 60 or 70 listeners who, we have great conversations during the game and we get mailbags for the episode and that sort of thing. And then you can, of course, just find us on social media. That's at Section 138 pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We'll be back at the end of this Chicago series to discuss what Charlie Montoyo's legacy in Toronto is. We'll catch you then.